It is not a law and order situation. This is a collapse of governance. If women themselves have no empathy for other women, how do you even begin to define that as women's empowerment? I think women have been hugely disempowered in this conflict.
Sexual violence is being used as a tool in this conflict in Manipur. How concerning is that, ma'am? And what has the government done to, you know, go after these people who are involved in such heinous crimes?
I am really appalled that the Chief Minister himself should be admitting that and not be seen to be doing anything about it. The media works in fits and starts, is not consistently reporting on an issue that deserves national attention. What about those women who suffered that indignity? Is anyone going to talk about them after this? Is anyone even concerned how they're going to live their lives after this? Think of it, yeah. I mean, it's the height of indignity that anyone can suffer. Our Prime Minister, he chooses what he speaks on. He doesn't choose to address critical issues. If you have listened to stories from Manipur day in and day out, you will know that rape kind of attempt, or the gang rape of those two women, was actually egged on by women themselves, by Meitei women.
Hello and welcome to the News Minute. The conflict in Manipur has shaken the collective conscience of the country. The video that went viral, in which two women belonging to the Kuki community were paraded naked on the streets of Manipur, has triggered massive outrage across the country. And now questions are being asked as to what exactly is the state government and the union government doing? And why is the Prime Minister silent on Manipur? To talk about this, I have with me senior journalist and the editor of the Shillong Times, Patricia Mukhim. Thank you so much for talking to us, ma'am. Take us to the current situation in Manipur after the video that had gone viral. What is the situation in both the Impal Valley as well as in the hill areas? What exactly is happening on ground, ma'am?
See, this video had a shock value. And because of this video, now all of us in this region are being interviewed, we're given space. The national media is back, with Manipur to its front burner. Otherwise, after the first few days, after a week or so, especially in television media had left Manipur aside because there were other more pressing issues for them, the opposition unity and all that. So to me, it seems that the media works in fits and starts, is not consistently reporting on an issue that deserves national attention, because Manipur shares a 398-kilometer border with Myanmar. The Northeast itself, India's Northeast, shares only 1% of its border with India, that 27-kilometer Siliguri corridor. And therefore, this region should receive due attention because it was a conflict zone. Then now you have all kinds of suspension of operations agreements, and then peace talks with some groups. But it doesn't mean that violence is over. Look at what is happening in Manipur today. The armed groups are again walking around and accumulating arms, and a society that is armed to the teeth is bound to get into violence of this kind. And that video that was circulated, it came maybe at an appropriate time because the matter is now being taken up in Parliament. But the point to note is also that if it takes a video of that kind of horror to wake up the conscience of the nation, then somebody somewhere might do a similar but more cruel kind of act, record it and send it all over the place just to get the attention of the national government. Is that a good thing? These are things we need to discuss now, because it seems that the nation only wakes up when there is this kind of horror and tragedy.
Exactly, ma'am. The Prime Minister reacted to what happened in Manipur. One specific instance, one specific incident regarding this video. Do you think that this reaction from the Prime Minister is too little, too late? And his reaction is worse than his silence because he has not uttered a word about Manipur for the past 79 days, 78 days rather.
You know, our Prime Minister, he chooses what he speaks on. He doesn't choose to address critical issues. You know, it's almost like you're dressing yourself up only for glamour and to get international attention more than national attention at the moment. We have been asking this, why the silence of the Prime Minister? When he came back from Egypt, we were told that his home minister briefed him on the situation in Manipur. Yet he didn't say a word. He didn't appeal for peace. And that was what the people of Manipur at least wanted. You know, there is some kind of sense in this part of the world that you want to belong. And yet you're remembered only in fits and starts. So I really don't understand why the Prime Minister took this vow of silence as far as Manipur is concerned. And perhaps the reason he spoke day before yesterday is because the Supreme Court had taken so moto notice of this. It had issued, a kind of a show cause notice to the Solicitor General. Solicitor General has to get the government's views on this, and therefore it was just to temper that, perhaps, that this was taken up, that he spoke on this. And then he spoke only on this single incident. There are hundreds of other incidents of a similar kind that happened since May the 3rd. Why the silence on all those other incidents? And the kind of humanitarian crisis that people are facing today, with food and essential supplies not getting there, medicines being in short supply, people from the hills unable to come to the valley and get out and do anything because there's so much fear. Then people's lives being shattered. Imagine the number of houses that have been burned. Can you even imagine that this is happening in the country and nothing is being done? The armed forces are there, but their hands are tied because they're not allowed to carry out their duties due to these human shields, these women who call themselves Mera Paibis. They're not allowed to arrest militants who've created terror and havoc. So, what kind of a situation are we in? Will we allow a similar situation in any other state of India? And then the next question is whether these sort of situations will not be replicated in other states of the Northeast. We know that there are many who are in peace talks, but when they see this attitude of the government of India, then there's a deficit. No, you can't trust what the government of India is really thinking about the region, whether it means well or whether it's just, you know, signing these agreements, peace agreements, but allowing it to just go on and on and on.
You talked about the attitude of the union government. What do you think? What could be the reason, the potential reason why the government is unmoved, why the prime minister is unmoved? Even after the prime minister has spoken about only one particular incident, the home ministry hasn't said anything about what's happening on ground. And what about the state government, ma'am? The usually the ready-made answer, during these situations is that law and order is a state government subject. But this is no longer a law and order situation.
No, it is not a law and order situation. This is a collapse of governance. The first thing that should have been done in the very first week, when there was this escalation of conflict, was to bring down the chief minister, who is seen to be overtly partisan and supporting one group against the other. He should have been brought down just to restore the confidence of people. The state should have come under president's rule, but none of that happened. You imposed Article 355, which means that law and order will go into central hands. But then you were ambiguous even about that. At some point, it was neither here nor there. We didn't know whether 355 was really working, except for the fact that a lot of uniformed personnel were pushed in. But then they were not given a free hand to deal with the situation. The government was still there, you see. Had it been under president's rule, maybe things would have been different.
And this is being portrayed as some sort of clash between two communities. So that's what they want to generalize this violence. They want to say that two groups are clashing, but there is some historical background to it. And before this violence, there was a clear build up. There was a malicious campaign against one particular community, or the minority communities there. Just take us through what exactly was the build up like that has resulted in this horrific tragedy in Manipur.
Today I was talking to some Kuki intellectuals, and they told me that government of India was supposed to sign some kind of agreement with two of their militant outfits, the Kuki National Organization and the United People's Front. It was going to sign an agreement that perhaps the hills would have greater autonomy of governance. Something like the sixth schedule, which all the tribal states enjoy. And that was supposed to have happened on the 7th or the 8th of May. So they suspect that it was to disrupt this whole thing, because the Manipur government does not want to give any autonomy to the hills. So it is perhaps to disrupt this agreement that this happened. Uh, and Of course, it is an ethnic conflict. There's no doubt about that. There has been this build up for a long time, because those people in the valley feel that they are being constrained by the fact that they have to live only in 10% of the geographical area of the state, while the tribes are, they have, before them they have a 90%, what you call 90% of the state,
Hill region, yeah.
of the land
Land.
available to
Hmm.
them, plus they can also buy land in the valley.
Hmm. Hmm.
So we understand these constraints, and we understand that there needs to be a, a kind of a land reform system, which has to be addressed by the government of the day or of past governments, because this is a bit of an inequitable kind of arrangement. And it was started by the British. Why did we perpetuate this British colonial law? So these are things. If this is not governance, then what is governance? It doesn't mean just ruling for 5 years and not tackling the very serious issues. And then you are bound to have, and then you create this sense that there is a lot of illegal migration from Myanmar. The chief minister himself is saying that the Kuki population is growing in leaps and bounds without any statistics. We don't have the 2021 census, so we can't say, what is the percentage growth, decadal growth. We can't make such claims. And then to call all of them drug peddlers and poppy growers and all that,
Poppy growers.
you're defaming one community. You're creating a narrative where there's so much of hatred built up against that community, and then you bring yourself to this point where one group from the valley is so sort of empowered to take on the group in the hills, because the chief minister has been saying that we need more reserved forests, and so there's intrusion into tribal forest lands, which, if done, should be done under due process. Even
Hmm.
if there is illegal migration, you have a process to deal with that. It should be a transparent process. But you can't just create a narrative and then assume a lot of things, and then have a conflict that's based on all wrong assumptions.
And as far as this conflict is concerned, the sexual violence is something, after the video that has come out, even the chief minister speaking to a media channel says that there are hundreds of such incidents. Like, this is just one incident, but there are also hundreds of such incidents. So sexual violence is being used as a tool in this conflict in Manipur. How concerning is that, ma'am? And what has the government done to you know go after these people who are involved in such heinous crimes?
I am really appalled that the chief minister himself should be admitting that, and not be seen to be doing anything about it. In the past, there were a lot of accusations that it was the military that did all that because they were, they enjoyed impunity under the Armed Forces Special Powers Act. So they could arrest anyone, they could do anything, but they used women again to, to create terror. You fight terror with counter terror. So there was a lot of resentment against the Armed Forces Special Powers Act because of this impunity. Now it has been steadily lifted, especially in the valleys. In the hills, it is still there. See, using, a woman's body as the location of violence is a strategy used by countries when they go to war with another country. For some reason, that has been the modus operandi. But this is your own country, and these are your own people, and this is this is not a war against another country, but it has been made to look like that. It has been made to look like a full-fledged war where any group can do anything to the women to create outrage. Basically, it is to create outrage and to say, look, this is what we are capable of doing. It's a kind of I mean, it's a kind of a terror method that just defies any kind of rationale.
So, even in this case, the assailants were allegedly triggered by a fake video of a Metis
Yes.
woman being raped, and the video was circulated in several WhatsApp groups. But when media channels are reporting about it, when they say that this was the reason for this particular incident, don't you think that the media is reducing this sexual violence or incident of sexual violence just to a freak incident of something that was triggered because of a fake news, and instead of recording the real pattern in which sexual violence has been happening against women, because this is not, we are not talking about one case, we are talking about such cases across the state, ma'am.
See, there is such a thing as gender sensitivity in reportage. How many of us are trained in that? No, gender sensitivity doesn't just come. You have to be trained to understand how to report such cases. You know, of course, now it has become a sensation. But what about those women who suffered that indignity? Is anyone going to talk about them after this? Is anyone even concerned how they're going to live their lives after this? Think of it. Yeah, I mean, it's the height of indignity that anyone can suffer. So, after this, I think we need to all go into training on how to report conflict in the first place. Many of us do not know how to report conflict, and you cannot report conflict and have a deadline because you need to really get into the nuance of things. You have to understand the culture of a place. You can't just paratroop in and talk to a few people and think you understand everything. This is the problem with the media in this country. As it is, they don't understand the Northeast at all. They don't understand that we are of different races here. you know we have different cultural nuances, food habits. I mean, the way we our world views are a little different. So it takes time to understand that. Even people who come and do some studies, they live here, especially foreign scholars, they live here for 2 3 years, and then only do they dare to write about these these communities. So uh, this conflict reportage is something that is very troubling because all these reporters are meeting a deadline and they're just doing all that they need to do, and then when the reports reach the desk is much more ill informed than those reporters in the field. They are in Delhi somewhere, they're in, so this is the problem. It is a problem of the media.
And you talked about women being harassed and subjected to different forms of sexual violence in the past in the hands of armed forces, and now we see that this is a different kind of sexual violence that women are witnessing there. Uh, what exactly is the difference? Like what exactly is the thing that one can understand from this, like the reason why they use sexual violence against women?
See, it started with the women of Nagaland because insurgency in Nagaland started in the right after independence, and it has been going on. And when you speak to those elders who witnessed that violence, and the reason they witnessed such violence is because you have the Indian military force coming into an area they hardly understand, you know, and then we look different. So these people must be thinking, I mean, how much of understanding does a soldier have? So it's the people of your own country as seen as the other. They are seen as the other that need to be subdued. And you can subdue them by hurting their women, and maybe those people who are using the guns might come down a wee bit. It might be easier to suppress them when they see that their women are being attacked. Even today, when you speak to those women in Nagaland, they are so traumatized when they hear the screeching of a jeep coming to a halt in front of their homes to search, for militants. And if they don't find them, then they will rape the women there. This has been a tactic of war, but it's not a tactic that should be used within one's own country. But when you use the military to quell internal conflicts, this is bound to happen. They are trained to deal with the external enemy, not with your internal civilization. With, I mean, the internal members of a country.
Women groups in Manipur have played a crucial role in creating bipartisan dialogue between conflicting communities. In this, gives an impression that you know of a relative political empowerment of women in this region. So, how do these incidents of sexual violence against women threaten, their participation in creating a dialogue or creating an atmosphere which is amicable for several communities to live together?
At this moment, I don't even know what to suggest, because if you have listened to stories from Manipur day in and day out, you will know that that rape kind of attempt, or the raping of the gang rape of those two women, was actually egged on by women themselves, by Meitei women from the other community. So, I mean, if women themselves have no empathy for other women, how do you even begin to define that as women's empowerment? I think women have been hugely disempowered in this conflict. Disempowered in that they have taken the wrong decisions. They have prevented the men in uniform, actually public servants, from carrying out their duties of arresting people who have created violence. How do you account for that? I mean, what sort of empowerment is this? I think we need to really go back to the drawing board and to check on what empowerment have we had. I mean, all these years we've been trying to do gender sensitization and women's empowerment, but it's very difficult to deconstruct things to what is there in your head. And then when you are in a mob, the mob reaction is so different from your individual reaction. It's easy to get carried away.
And also talking about the role of the media. If the mainstream media had paid enough attention on the Manipur crisis from day one, probably the central government or the union government or the state government would have forced to do something to stop this violence. Do you think that the media has clearly failed? The mainstream media, the national channels, all of them have failed, in creating, in stopping this violence in Manipur.
See, what we are today as media organizations. Did any single media person ask the prime minister a question on Manipur? Did you hear that? Did you hear anyone? I mean, in normal circumstances, that is the first thing that the media would do. Mr. Prime Minister, what do you have to say on Manipur? But did you have any single journalist do that? Did you have any single journalist asking Amit Shah, uh, all this is happening, what is the Home Ministry doing, what are you doing to, to bring this conflict to some kind of end? And then also the fact that a peace committee was formed after the Union Home Minister came to Manipur, and that peace committee was headed by the Chief Minister himself. I mean, that is a farce. That is a drama you're acting out. A peace committee has to be headed by somebody that is trusted by both sides of the divide, you know and it should be an organic thing that comes from the people themselves should desire peace. At this point, you don't see that happening in Manipur. But I'll come back again to the media. So the media today is reduced to a cacophony because we are not able to ask hard questions to the right people. We are only asking, I mean, we are doing these TV debates every evening, calling people of political parties who will have their say. It's almost like you're giving them a platform to sort of enhance the image of their parties. We are not doing a favor at all to anyone.
And finally, ma'am, what exactly Manipur needs now?
Manipur needs the healing touch. There's no doubt about it. There's a crisis of sorts, a humanitarian crisis. There is lack of medicines, and food grains are not being allowed. One group is stopping transport from going to the hills. Another one is stopping them from coming to the valley. So, I mean, there has to be somebody who who rises above these two ethnicities and somebody who has a voice that people respect, who can come up and play the role of an interlocutor, who can play the role of a, a peace builder. And I also ask myself this question: where have all the NGOs, where have all the civil society groups disappeared? This is the time for them to come out. If you remember, even in the 2002 Godhra riots, there are civil societies like Seva, for instance, and they just froze. They didn't know how to react. And I think this is something that perhaps we need to train ourselves on how to act during times of conflict, how to prevent uh, communities from freezing into their own little zones and not talk to each other anymore. How do we do that? How do we temper how do we regulate the tempers of people who just don't mind about uh, burning houses, razing things to the ground? This whole revenge and retaliation, where does it come from? Where does so much anger come from? Maybe we need some institutions for peace building, some institutions for anger management, and all that, because we are a difficult region at best. We've just about come out of the militancy regime and just getting on the road to development, but then this has happened and disrupted our lives all over again. So I
Now you
think
said, yeah, you said that you need someone who can rise above these ethnicities, who can be trusted.
yeah.
Can the Prime Minister do this? Can Prime Minister Narendra Modi do this? Because remember, when Narendra
No,
Modi traveled to Manipur, he spoke about, or whenever he travels to Northeast, he talks about Ashtalakshmi and
yeah.
all that. Uh, can he do that?
No, no, no. I don't think any politician has the capacity to do that, because it's politics that has brought in all this conflict, yeah. So you can't expect politics to bring the healing touch. It has to be somebody who's completely non-political, somebody who has humanitarian concerns, who has a proven track record of being a peace builder of some kind. Now, where do we find such people today? We are all, even in the country, we are all so divided. We are all so polarized.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you so much for talking to us. I hope that things come back to normalcy in Manipur, and we will be closely keeping a watch on these developments in Manipur. We will get in touch with you once again, ma'am. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you. Thank you.